He sat inside that prison cell and looked the system dead in the eyes and said, I will kill people. I will eat their hearts. Do not let me out. And Nebraska said, oh, okay, well, let's release you anyways. 10 years early. And just days after walking out of those doors, this man went on a killing spree that left 4 people dead. This is the story of Nico Jenkins. Ever since Nico was a kid, violence and abuse has always surrounded him. I mean, he was getting on his hands and knees on a bathroom floor, cleaning up somebody else's blood before he probably even went to school. By 7 years old, he was already bringing weapons to school. By 11, he had joined a gang. And at 17 years old, he was sitting in a courtroom being sentenced to 15 years in prison for carjacking. And you would think he'd realize his wrong ways and be like, okay, I seriously need to better myself. But no, instead, Nico went into prison and kept going. He was always assaulting inmates, assaulting guards, participating in prison riots, getting written up 71 times between 2004 and 2012 alone for violations including creating a shiv out of a toilet brush, racking up so many additional charges that 5 more years got added onto his sentence, bringing it up to 20 years. And then things behind those walls stopped being just violent and started becoming something much darker. Because Nico started hallucinating, started drinking his own bodily fluids, started unraveling in ways that even hardened correctional officers were alarmed by. And the prison had no choice but to keep him in solitary confinement for roughly 60% of his entire sentence. Not as punishment, but because they genuinely could not figure out how to keep the other inmates safe around him. As early as May 2009, prison records showed Nico telling staff that an ancient Egyptian god named Apophis, the serpent deity of chaos and destruction, was speaking to him directly and commanding him to kill children. That if they ever released him back into the real world, people were going to die. That he would eat the hearts of his victims. That the violence inside of him has found a name and a purpose, and that there was no version of his release that ended without bloodshed. So naturally, the state of Nebraska was like, okay, I hear you. I definitely hear you. So let's just take you out 10 years early. Yeah? Just 10 days after being released, Nico caught up his sister and his cousin, and together they lured out 2 men named Jorge Ruiz and Juan Uribe Peña away from a bar by setting up what looked like a robbery. And when those 2 men realized what was happening and tried to run, tried to do any rational thing a person could do when they feel like their life is about to slip away, Nico raised his weapon and shot both of them dead in the street, leaving them there and walking away without a trace of hesitation. 8 days after that, him and his sister hunted down a man named Curtis, and they ambushed him and killed him. Which, remember what I said, the whole family is insane. His own mother has been the one supplying him with the ammunition to commit these crimes. And then just 2 days later, Nico decided that he wanted a car. So him and his uncle drove over to a McDonald's and spotted Andrea Kruger, a mother of 3 children, sitting in her car doing something so painfully ordinary, just trying to grab a meal and go home. And Nico walked up to her, grabbed her body, dragging her out of her own seat, and he shot her in the head at point blank range right there in the parking lot. Then he drove away in her car like she had never existed at all. After just 29 days of being free, he has already taken the lives of 4 people. When police finally caught up to him, Nico's story just kept on changing. First, he told him that his sister and his cousin were the one who did everything, that he had nothing to do with it. And then he sat down for an 8-hour recorded confession where he walked investigators through every single murder with this calm demeanor that was deeply unsettling, just owning all of it in this vivid detail. And then he changed his story again, landing finally on the version that he would carry into court, which was that none of these were murders at all. That every single one of those deaths was a sacred ritual sacrifice carried out under the divine command of Apophis, the Egyptian god of chaos, and that he was simply a vessel fulfilling a holy obligation. During his own trial, which he chose to represent himself in, Nico spoke in tongues, howling and laughing as the prosecutors were reading the details of his victims' deaths out loud in court. But then he did something that somehow managed to be even more audacious than all of that. He sued the state of Nebraska for $24.5 million, arguing that they had manufactured this entire catastrophe by releasing him after he had explicitly, repeatedly, and on record told them exactly what would have happened the moment that he got out. And I'll be honest, his logic was not completely wrong, because this is the man that they consider to be too dangerous to be be around other convicted criminals. And somehow they thought releasing him around regular civilians with zero oversight was the reasonable next step. I mean, even the victims' families agreed. The families of Andrea Kruger and Curtis Bradford also sued the state of Nebraska for the same reason, arguing that the prison officials had every single tool they needed to prevent those deaths, and they still chose to not use a single one of them. Nico Jenkins was sentenced to death 4 times over, plus 450 years in prison on weapon charges. His sister Erica got life in prison and still somehow found time awaiting sentencing to attack their cousin in a jail cell with a bike lock stuffed inside of a saw. Their mother Lori got 10 years in federal prison for buying the ammunition used in the killings, and their uncle Warren got 40 years for his role in Andrea Kruger's murder. So that means that the whole family is behind bars. Thank God. And as of right now, in 2026, Nico Jenkins is still alive on death row in Nebraska, still breathing, still existing, still on the same planet as all of us, which is extremely disturbing to think about. But please be safe out there and be kind to each other. I love you guys so much. I will see you in my next video. Mwah. Group hug.